Hello, everyone. This is Patrick with Walk the Mock. Tonight we are joined by a very special guest, Kent Lee Platte, Math Bomb on Twitter. Some of them may not know his name necessarily, but you definitely know his work with the RAS. Do you say RAS? What do you call it? Do you say
I
RAS,
usually,
RAS?
yeah, I just usually call it RAS. It gets kind of interchangeable after a while. Depends on how fast I want to talk.
But anyway, you certainly see his cards here. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and just share my screen just so we can, for anyone who doesn't know, we'll go ahead. I'll share my screen here so you can see the great work that he does. And so he is what you'd call a combine expert, an expert for the combine stuff. Is that fair to say?
I hope I'm an expert. I've been doing it for almost a decade now. I'm
Right.
at least above average.
So we'll go ahead here. I just pulled up the top
Modest.
player for this year's draft here. So if you weren't familiar, you might be more familiar with these. The cards, they're just such an easy, convenient way. And so we're going to go ahead and since we're joined by him, we're just going to talk about the combine, how it's been going this year, and the risers, the fallers, stuff like that. So what I wanted to talk about first is this has been kind of a crazy athletic year. Is that a fair thing to say?
It started out that way. It's kind of a weird year in that we had 2 years. Last year we had a combine or a pro day circuit with no combine, and the year before we had a combine with no pro day circuit. So we've had a couple of really weird years in a row. And then we have what's shaping up to be the largest draft class in decades. And the combine was crazy. The combine had a lot of really uber athletic guys in it. So it really does look that way on the surface. Once you start digging a little bit, the pro day circuit's starting up right now. Everything's kind of starting to equalize. The NFL always invites the best athletes to the combine. And with such a big class, there was a lot of guys to choose from. And we had some really fast groups too. So it's a really athletic class. It really is. But I think it's a little bit blown out of proportion just because of how weird the last couple of years have been.
I mean, also you have so right here off the top is we have three guys that tested as so the all time RAS. If it's a 10, that means they're like one or two best ever at their position, right?
Yeah, it's on a 0 to 10 scale. So if I have enough players, there could be two guys at 10, but generally there's only one. The most I think we've had in since the 2000s in any given year has been two guys that got a 10 in the same year, and we got three this time. One of which, Jordan Davis, has the second highest overall average of any player ever, behind only Calvin Johnson. And then Tariq Woolen, if his splits turn out to be as good as his 40-yard dash was, he might be either at or right below that too.
Well,
I mean, it's crazy. I think that it's especially crazy with Woolen kind of came out of nowhere. I had not watched any Woolen. I still haven't watched a ton of him, but I watched a little bit since then, and it just sometimes these crazy athletes just come out of nowhere. I think if he'd stuck at receiver and then tested like this, it still would have been crazy. You know, he's playing cornerback, and we just really it feels like we never get athletes at cornerback like this that are this big and this fast. It seems like those guys are always at receiver. I don't understand. I don't know exactly why that is. It just seems like that's the way it is. And I think someone said that he is the first cornerback above like 200 or 205 pounds or something since like 2009 to run a 4.38 or faster or something like that. I don't remember the exact fact, but it's something like that. It's just like, why are all the big fast guys always going to wide receiver?
Yeah, you don't get a lot of big corners in general, let alone big fast guys. A lot of the corners that are this big, they tend to run poorly. I got a little bit of a heads up about Tariq Woolen and Kalen Barnes, who ran the fastest time at the combine this year.
I heard about Barnes.
Yeah, I know some folks that work very closely with those guys, and I was given the heads up. You might have seen me post about it early that morning. I was like, that record might actually be in danger today. And if you followed me for any period of time, I don't generally predict guys under 4.3 because it's so rare. But I knew coming into the day that those guys had already hit sub 4.3 consistently, like every time they ran by that point. So it's surprising to see when it actually happens, right? You don't usually get to see that type of stuff, and
I mean,
it's really cool. It's really cool to see guys just blaring.
It is. It was really weird this year too with there were so many adjustments after the runs. Like most of the runs were either like the first couple of runs they were really fast, were they really fast or really slow, and then it switched to the other way. I
Yeah.
can't remember which way it was. It started fast and then it went slow after that. Is that right?
Yeah, and we always get adjustments. Like it's not really that surprising to get adjustments. But normally, most players will be adjusted by like 0.01,
Mm-hmm.
0.02 maybe, and then 3 or 4 players per group will get a bigger adjustment because the timing was off. This time, almost every player got adjusted by a pretty large amount each time. So it was a bit surprising. I had heard that there was some new personnel involved that were maybe that was part of
Right. I
it.
heard different clocking. It was
Yeah,
I can't remember who they said used to do it, but he stopped doing it. This was
Charlie
his last
Casserly.
year.
Yeah, for their
Mhm.
hand timing, Charlie Casserly had left.
Right.
Yeah, it's a little weird that we had this many. Zybeck that runs that stuff has always done a really good job of making sure that all that timing is really accurate, even with
Mm-hmm.
even with the human error that we have. And this year was just all over the place.
All right, so let's talk about a little bit, and let's get Grant involved in this. He's been a little out of it. Let's get it some risers and fallers talk. So we have some pictures here, some guys that we thought were a little bit riser, a little bit faller. So Grant, who do you think? We talk about one of these four guys. You can talk about someone else. Talk about one of your risers or fallers.
I mean, yeah, I feel like we already touched on Woolen and Davis a little bit already. Those guys, I mean, definitely. Davis is just like a rolling boulder. Like that guy's ridiculous. Some guys that I thought had a good combine, even though maybe like subtly good, is Greg Dulcich. I think that he's kind of going under the radar as a guy that could go in high second round. He didn't do anything crazy athletically, but he checked all the boxes. I was pretty happy with his performance. I think that I mean I'm not sure how NFL is looking at him, but as far as my rankings, I think that he blew out of the water the expectations that I was having, and he's definitely a guy that I could see going high second round there.
Right, we have
Yeah,
his card
7.6.
pulled
It's
up.
like right
And
below
his
elite
size, because his
status.
size probably drags him down pretty hard, being such a small tight end.
Right.
It's pretty good numbers overall. And I think he was Daniel Jeremiah's top tight end coming into the draft, coming into the combine at least. So there's a little movement there, but I mean, yeah, that's pretty good numbers for him. Definitely not bad.
Yeah, and
One of the guys,
that size profile isn't very worrisome either. NFL tight ends
Mhm.
have been trending downward in size for some years now. Raz isn't graded on an ideal scale for height and weight. Those scores are used to weight all of the other ones. But he's undersized technically only. Like NFL tight ends are about that size now.
Right. It's like it just depends on what you're asking him to do. You're not going to ask this guy to come in and do a lot of inline blocking, and you're not going to ask I'm not going to ask someone like like one of those speedy receivers to go up and make contested catches. I'm not going to ask someone like an Allen Robinson to run a 4.3 because that's not how they win, and you can know that by watching their tape. So definitely, I mean, RAS is of course extremely helpful, but it definitely has its moments where you kind of have to give it context a little bit. I mean, I would say one of my biggest surprise performances. I mean, Jordan Davis, I knew would test well, but how well he tested is just absolutely insane for his size. He might be. I know that literally he's, according to Rass, he is pound for pound the second best athlete ever at the combine, but just genuinely running this kind of speeds at this weight is just absolutely insane. And those jumps on top
That
of it, not
broad,
just long
that broad is
speed.
Yeah,
It's insane. And you wouldn't have really you knew he was athletic from his tape, but this is just way beyond that.
if he was a small defensive tackle, that broad would be incredible. And he's 340 pounds. That's not a small defensive tackle.
Right. He's just got a huge build, and it's just insane. One of my big fallers from this draft, someone who I saw routinely in like the top 100 a lot of the time here was sometimes at least was this Kyron Williams. Oh, we lost Grant. We're bringing him back in. I was talking about how Kyron Williams was one of my fallers here, Grant. This is pretty brutal. 4.6. I have a little threshold chart somewhere where I just like look at. I looked at for my podcast a couple years ago. I looked at like what is like the minimum, the worst that someone could run, and then realistically not be an outlier to succeed. And I think 4.65 was the cutoff for running back. So he like just barely hit it, and then he's small. His jumps were bad. I just don't know if I'd feel comfortable touching him until like the very end of the draft.
Yeah, Kyron Williams did not test well. And, like in anything, like if you're not a bigger back, you can't be running a 4.65. The
Right.
expectation there is that you got to have at least some kind of manageable speed. A 4.65 is perfectly fine for a bigger power back type of player because you're not expected to outrun a bunch of guys. But if you're under 200 pounds, if you're not a very big dude to begin with, those numbers are really troublesome. And that's even before you look at the agility drills and the explosive drills. Like everything was poor.
Right.
We have seen a couple of players in the NFL who have found success with that kind of profile, but it is very few and very far between.
James Robinson tested well, other than his 40, right?
Robinson did all right, yeah.
Yeah, it's just not. He just did bad on his 40, I think.
Yeah.
Like I think he ran like a
4.65.
Robinson's
right,
bigger. He's big.
Dude. Yeah.
Right. I just pulled up Isaiah Spiller here because he's a bigger dude. He's 6 foot, almost 220, and we didn't get anything other than jumps from him, but they're bad, which is a little bit concerning. But it's also he's so thick, you're not going to expect him to jump super well.
Yeah, there is additional context with Spiller too. I understand that he was injured. That's actually why he didn't finish any of the other drills, was due to an injury.
That definitely hurts.
You never want to. You always want to take those combine injuries with a grain of salt. Like,
right.
There's
Run poorly.
Oh, I pulled my hamstring.
Right.
But when they have when it's documented and that we start to realize there actually was an injury involved, then it tends to mean a little bit more.
Right.
But
Jarvis Landry.
Yeah. Jarvis Landry tested knowing he had a hamstring injury. That's his fault. It's hilarious, and we get to laugh at it because he really shouldn't have done it. It's a cautionary tale.
All right, Kent, who's someone that really surprised you from the combine? I'll pull up their card. Who is surprising to you?
So, not from a testing standpoint. I know it's weird coming from me, but Sky Moore, wide receiver out of Western Michigan, he got a little bit of hype coming into the combine. He wasn't an unknown. He tested okay. He ran a really good 40, but his other drills weren't super great.
A lot of receivers like that this year.
Yes. But he tests his actual on-field drills, though, were extremely good. Very smooth catching the football, running his routes. Everything that he did was smooth as all get. And from what I understand, his interviews went just as well, if not better, than his drills did. He tested well. He interviewed really well. I feel like he's a big riser, even though he didn't test as phenomenally as you would expect a guy to. That's going to start getting hype, especially a smaller guy who doesn't really have that great of agilities. You worry about that a little bit if it's going to show up on field. But I think that he did a lot to raise his profile, even if the testing numbers weren't, eye popping.
I mean, I would say that we've seen a lot of like, in the fact, it's weird how it feels like a lot of slot receivers who are like really good slot receivers haven't had the best agility. So I'll pull one up. I'll pull up my example.
Yeah,
here.
my favorite.
Classic. He's so quick, but then you look at his agilities and he sucked.
Yep, it's great when you see those, man, because you're like, how did that work?
Right. And he wasn't that explosive either. Just above average explosion. It's just like where did he come from? This is a lot like Sky Moore's profile, really.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit heavier, and but the 40 almost dead on. They both did bad agilities. I think Sky Moore did a little bit better on explosion, but that is a very
Sky Moore's got those
profile.
big mitts, though.
Yeah, big hands will help you.
Big hands.
Yes, yeah, like Kenny Pickett. That's a really similar profile. Golden Tate a little bit bigger, but the bad agilities, like almost the exact same 40. That is interesting. I didn't realize how close they were. All right.
I'm not making that count, but I like it.
I'm not making it either, but it's interesting. It's interesting how close they are. I had not really heard a lot of buzz about who was pull up the other. So we had 3 10 Razes, and we already talked about Jordan Davis and Tariq Woolen. But the other one here is Brandon Smith. I feel like I hardly ever heard people talking about him before the combine, and I still have hardly heard anyone mentioning it. I feel like he's like I hear him sometimes, but for someone who had who did this good athletically, I feel like I would be hearing about him more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this isn't really out of the blue. Penn State has probably the best strength and conditioning program in the country, if not best, second best. But it's got to be up there. It's not out. It isn't completely unexpected that he would have tested really well. The reason you don't hear too much about him is that the tape doesn't quite line up with the athletic profile. Not that he has bad tape. I think he's a good player. I think that he's got a good future ahead of him in the NFL if he can make some things click. But there's a lot of missed tackles. There's some technical issues there that need to get cleaned up. The athletes there, Penn State, they find them and they develop them. And it's
Oregon always has really good athletes too. A lot of time it feels like.
Yeah, Oregon does a good job of both developing really good athletes and taking advantage of guys who aren't great athletes but are good at one thing. They're good at exploiting that one thing.
Yeah. Guys, Troy Anderson was a big winner. In my mind, I feel like he's definitely been a name I've heard a lot more about since the combine. In comparison, like Brandon Smith, I feel like people. I think it is something, you mentioned like Brandon Smith, the tape doesn't match up, is I feel like after the combine, and I've done this before, you go back for these guys who test really well, and you go back and you look at the tape, and for some of them, you're like, okay, I see it. This is good. I'm liking this. And then for some of them, you're like, I don't. How?
Yeah, Troy
Anderson
Anderson was a sleeper for a lot of folks coming into the combine. So I didn't know. I hadn't watched him. I was just as surprised as everybody else. But he had some fans coming into it who were hyping him up after he ran that had been talking about him for a little while. So it's one of those wild card types of guys.
Yeah, obviously we have our presumptuous number 1 overall pick tested really well. We've been doing some mock drafts. I kept giving him to you. Both of you guys are Lions fans. If you didn't know, if you guys didn't know that, I've been kept giving him to the Lions. I'm like, take the Michigan guy, take him home. But with that Cam Robinson tag, I don't think he's getting there. Unfortunately, I feel like that was the nail in the coffin.
Got to have 2 tackles, man. They can still draft him.
What do you mean? They drafted Walker Little.
Yeah, they got to have 2 tackles. They still draft him.
They drafted Juwan Taylor and Walker Little, I think in back-to-back second rounds, or maybe there's a year in between there. I feel like they're going to give Walker Little at least a chance, but man, that's Juwan Taylor. I definitely thought was going to be better than he has been, and Cam Robinson has never really expected much, but they gave him the tag, so they're definitely going to play him.
That's the expectation.
Yeah.
Hutchinson's a great learning experience, I think, for a lot of folks that have just started getting into scouting this year, because it's very easy to get into that kind of groupthink. And there was a lot of talk early in the season about how he had some athletic concerns and how he wasn't that great of an athlete. And like, if you didn't really watch him all that closely and you just believed that and parroted it back, then you got a little bit of egg on your face when he actually did test. Michigan juices their numbers when they talk about how guys test.
Oh yeah, you remember what was Quiddy Pay's number? 3 cone going to be like 6.25 or something?
Yeah, they juice their numbers, but even with that expectation that the numbers that they're saying are going to be juiced, even if you adjust for that, the kind of numbers that he was putting up were still incredible. So 6'7" I think they were saying 6'5" I think was what they were saying in spring ball for him. Quiddy Pay was 6'3" I think was what they said for Pay.
Right, which would have been better than I think any all but like 3 players had ever run, even at like 190 pounds. So
yeah, Michigan juices their numbers, but even adjusting for it, which is what he ran, is just an adjusted version of what they had given out, is phenomenal, and it really wasn't that surprising. It shows up on tape. Just he's got such a motor that you don't see it every play, because he's not doing that bend around the edge every play. He's got other things he's got to do. He's got to defend the run. You're not going to bend around the edge when you're defending the run. You just don't do that. Well, not if you defend the run well.
He's a great player. And here's the thing that killed me about this. When the people kept bringing up that he wasn't athletic, he was on Feldman's freaks list. And he's never wrong. Feldman always has, if they're on the freak list, they're going to test well. Maybe not always in every single drill.
Right.
Because sometimes people are like, this guy's a great jumper or this guy's a great sprinter. and they go out and have bad agilities. But if they're on Peloton's freaks list, they're not going to have bad athleticism.
Yeah.
And that's just something that got brought down. There's a few more guys from testing that I want to talk about. So I'm just going to bring some guys up in no particular order. Grant, do you have any guys you want to talk about? Bring them up now.
I mean, off the top of
We'll
my
talk about
head,
this one.
I mean, Christian Watson had that's another riser
We'll
that we could
talk-
be talking about.
We'll bring his card up next. I want to talk about Travon Walker and the tale of this is not what he looks like on tape. He does not look nearly. I mean, it could be something like Aiden Hutchinson. He looks, but he just didn't have the pass rushing prowess you expect of a guy. Him and Jordan Davis, kind of similar, where they were these really good run defenders, really stout, disciplined run defenders, and then they go out and they test like they should be getting after the passer every single down because they're some of the best athletes ever for going into the NFL.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just scheme. I mean, you don't always get the best scheme for every player at the college level. It would be nice if we had the players and the best schemes they could possibly be in, but we don't always see it. Rashawn Gary's a really good example of that. Rashawn Gary tested just slightly worse than Travon Walker did. We had a whole joke at the time where we ran him at pretty much every position and he still tested well. Travon Walker is kind of in that same boat, and it's not that Georgia misused him. It's that they may not have had a reason to use him in the types of ways that the NFL is going to. We've seen guys that don't produce at the college level who transfer to the NFL, get drafted. Transition was the word I was looking for. They get to the NFL and they get a coach that knows what to do with them. Daniil Hunter and Mike Zimmer is the best example of that, where you have a guy that's just not productive. He gets to the pros and suddenly production. Because if you have the traits that NFL coaches value and they know how to use you, then they're going to find a way to do that. The Detroit Lions did it with Ezekiel Ansah. The Ravens did it just last year with Odafe Owa. These are guys that come in with those elite level traits. So maybe it isn't all there in tape, but you're not looking to see if all of it's there. You're just looking to see if what they tested and what that coach wants is on that tape. And if it shows up at all, that coach is going to want to get in there. They're going to be wringing their hands, ready to bring that guy in and try to develop it the way they want. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But that's the risk.
Sometimes you get Daniil Hunter. Sometimes you get who was a recent? There's so many ones that recently. Sometimes you get Vic Beasley.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost Grant again, but he's back.
Yep.
Grant, you need to fix your internet.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this. It's ridiculous.
This happened last week too.
Sorry about that.
No, it was 2 weeks ago. Anyways, Travon Walker, I feel like he really needed polish on his pass rush, but I feel like that's probably, like you said, partially coaching, because it's like they're not asking him to go out and violently get after the pass rusher, so he's probably more focused on his run defense, which is what they play him for mostly. I mean, they had such a crazy front seven. Jordan Davis only played like a third to 50% of the snaps or something like that most games. He's not going to be doing that in the NFL because he tested insanely well, and he's at least going to be playing 60-70% of the snaps. It's a bit of a projection, but you never know. I feel like a lot of different people have said this. I think I remember Daniel Jeremiah is saying this specifically, is you're not asking a player what can a player do, you're asking what will a player be able to do. Is like something, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically the idea. And with that, we have
it's kind of like when you sign a free agent deal. You're not signing it for what the guy has done in the past. You're signing him for what you believe he will do as your player. We saw that with Christian Kirk, who has some exceptionally high.
We'll talk.
Lots of expectations.
We reserve the second half of the show for free agency, so we'll definitely get around to talking about that contract. So Grant, you want to talk about Christian Watson? Tell me what you think. Looking at this versus what
Christian Watson was this guy coming into the combine. I hadn't heard too much about him. I only saw
I think he got some Senior Bowl buzz,
but he's just a guy that was advertised as big and pure speed, and he showed out at the combine. And I think he did exactly what he was supposed to do. Now we're talking, this guy might sneak into the first round here at the end.
Oh, I think that'd be a mistake, but they've done. Rashad Perriman went in the first round, so it wouldn't be surprising.
Watson doesn't have that name though. Yeah, it's Christian Watson was getting a lot of hype for coming out of the Senior Bowl because was probably the best receiver at the Senior Bowl the way that he played. It was extremely wet and rainy and gross there. My mustache did not survive day 2 of the Senior Bowl. It was looking very sad. But he was still catching stuff even when it was wet. But he wasn't perfect. And whenever you have a guy that tests like this, people go back to the tape. And I think you're going to see a little bit of a rubber band with Christian Watson where people are going to overreact to his testing. And then they're going to go back to his tape and it's going to drop him a little bit. He's still a really good prospect. I still think he goes day 2, probably high day 2, maybe even 34. But I don't think that he's got first round tape. And I think the teams are going to notice that.
Right. He's definitely someone that is like just you're drafting for what he can be. Because in college he was not a first round. He was an NFL quality receiver. He definitely needs some seasoning. Maybe go into a place where he can kind of not necessarily sit for a year, but spend some time on the sidelines, learning would be really good. Here we go. I wanted to bring up someone. I think we might have lost Grant again. I'll bring up someone, Kent, that really fascinates me. He's kind of the inverse of Christian Watson here. He was someone that Treylon Burks is a really fascinating name for me coming out of the combine because he's someone that kind of felt like big school Christian Watson, where he was getting billed, and he is better tape for sure. But he came into the combine getting billed as this height, weight, speed guy. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, and he is big. But then he came out and he had what you could say is decent testing, not great, but definitely not good, but definitely not terrible. But I feel like it's almost like the expectations of what he would be kind of crushed him coming out of the combine because people kind of thought, okay, this is a 4.4, maybe even high 4.3s guy that's 220, that's exciting. That's when you can really get behind. But then he came out and he just didn't do that. And I think that the expectations hurt him more than the actual testing.
Yeah, and I found myself in a really weird position with Treylon Burks because I haven't been a really big fan of Treylon Burks throughout this whole process, even before the combine. And the idea that he was some ridiculous athlete that was going to test off the charts, I didn't really see that. I think he tested worse than I expected to. I kind of expected him to be maybe up in the 7s a little bit.
Right, I was thinking like 8, 9. I was definitely thinking I thought he was really agile for his size.
But that's not where he was getting hyped, though. The amount of hype for Treylon Burks got really out of control, and that's nothing. This is nothing against Treylon Burks himself. It's not in his control at all. This is a completely media-driven narrative that he was this uber athlete, and then he just didn't test like it. He ran the agilities at his pro day, and they were also bad. You don't have to be some ridiculous athlete. It's better if you are. And the NFL has so many different types of receivers, guys that win in different ways. And Burks wins because he's a bigger dude. He wins because he's able to box guys out with his size. He wins because he has bigger hands, which his hands didn't even test all that big. But he wins because he's got good hands generally. And he's able to pull down a lot of contested catches. He's able to do some really physical stuff. You don't have to be super fast or super agile to be able to do that type of stuff. He's fine. We had the same conversation about CeeDee Lamb a couple of years ago, Juju Smith-Schuster. Both of those guys tested quite a bit better than Burks did, but it was the same kind of conversation where they weren't top-tier elite athletes and they were still expected to be very good prospects. It's like, just look at how they win. And if they do that fine, then you don't have any concerns.
Right. I think I just brought up DK Metcalf because I feel like people were kind of expecting this out of Treylon Burks. And then when he did average, it really hurt him because they're expecting 4.3 at 225. And it just, this DK Metcalf is a unicorn. Like Tariq Woolen is a unicorn. You're not going to get these guys very often who come in 200 plus pounds running 4.3s.
Yeah, it's not common.
No. But yeah, I think that really hurt him. I feel like that kind of solidly made him the wide receiver 4-5 is where he's going to come off the board after that. Just kind of depend. I don't know where Drake London's going to go because it really feels like some people are like, oh yeah, he's going to be the first wide receiver off the board. And I see some that say like, oh man, some teams have him in like the second round. It's like Really have no idea where Drake London's going to go. That one's a mystery.
I think what hurt Burks more than just his own testing, though, was how well other receivers did at the combine, both in drills and in testing. Not just Christian Watson, but I mentioned Sky Moore, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. Guys like that did much more to help their stock than I think Treylon Burks did. And leaving the combine with that generally negative impression, I think, hurt him more than the actual testing did.
Right, like Garrett Wilson ran a 4.38. I think Chris Olave was a 4.39.
Yeah.
Chris Olave kind of shocked me. I thought he was bigger. I was surprised that he was his arm length and his height. I thought he was like bigger than that. I don't know why.
Some guys just look bigger when they're playing.
I know.
Yeah, he's
and
a skinnier
here's the thing.
dude. Looks a little bit lankier on tape.
Right. He's so skinny, I feel like it made him look a bit longer than he is. I think that's what it was. Here's one that I could have told you was Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he was listed at 5'10", 5'11" by Kentucky. And I was like, he's not going to measure that.
Kentucky fans, man. Like I mentioned that, he measured in 3 inches shorter than he was listed at Kentucky, which is not a knock on Wan'Dale Robinson. That's not his fault.
No.
That is Kentucky's fault. That ain't his fault. Kentucky fans were unhappy with me, man. They didn't like me at all when you posted about that. But yeah, it's actually it's not just the height, but his overall length is really poor. And I think that hurts him. 27-inch arms is
those
really
are
short.
tiny arms. Who else? Someone else, a cornerback, had really tiny arms. Who was it?
Roger McCreary had shorter arms, I believe.
I think there's another one too, though.
Yeah, you don't want receivers with shorter arms. You guys, they got to be able to extend out and get receptions. Length is important. If you're not height is not necessarily a big deal if you have longer arms. You're still able to go up and get the ball. You're not catching balls. You're not catching footballs with the top of your head. You're catching them with your hands at the end of your arms. So length is really important. And Wan'Dale Robinson didn't test very well in either of those things. He is still pretty well liked. I know a lot of teams still really like him. The Lions are actually included in that group of teams that like Wan'Dale Robinson. But it's concerning, to say the least.
Yeah, I think Calvin Austin was he's the kind of smaller guy that still had the length, I think. I'll pull him up in a second. I remembered who the other corner was. I just need to find his card. We're just going to we'll look at, here we go. He didn't get a rest, so I can find him. RAS. Trent McDuffie had short arms too. That's who I was thinking of. Not as short, obviously not 27-inch arms because those are teeny tiny, but no offense to, that sounded very, sounded very rude to Wan'Dale Robinson. He probably beat me up. Please don't. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think Wan'Dale Robinson's still an interesting player, but definitely this length hurts. And then Calvin Austin came with 30-inch arms for his size is pretty good. He's at 5'7", is very small, but has good length arms and good size hands for that size. And then he did also test elite and everything else. So he's kind of like the prototypical what you're looking for when you're trying to see one of these small receivers who might be able to succeed.
Yeah, and it all kind of really kicked off, with the Chiefs. They've got a guy who's okay, who's small and super athletic, extremely good and small and athletic. And then Rondale Moore, of course, got picked up last year. Very small, very athletic. It's a profile that teams are trying to do more with. It isn't traditionally successful in that there isn't a long history of guys that have won with that type of profile. But the NFL is cyclical. The NFL rotates through stuff. It changes as time goes on. And if that's what we're picking up, then we're going to start seeing cornerbacks start to follow suit. We're going to start seeing a little bit smaller cornerbacks with more speed and more explosiveness. And then, of course, we'll see bigger receivers to counter those smaller cornerbacks. And it just keeps going around in circles. All
right. I feel like do either of you guys have anyone else you want to touch on where we can spend a little time talking about all the free agency moves today?
No,
yeah, I think I'd be ready to get into some free agency here.
Alrighty, all right. So first off, here I'll pull up this graphics. I feel like this is kind of what you got to talk about. Brady's back. I feel like this is the move more than anything else. Raises a team's Super Bowl chances more than any other move that any other team could make, probably. Just because him coming back, they had no chance of winning Super Bowl with Kyle Trask at quarterback.
No.
But I mean, it made big moves right away. They brought back Ryan Jensen. I bet Gronk comes back now. It just really changed the entire outlook of their offseason that he came back. And I wonder how long ago they knew.
I don't know. When was the last big news cycle? Was it Rodgers getting? It's probably then. guys like attention.
He saw Rodgers sign back to the Packers. He's like, I'm going to take over that.
Yeah.
And then we have, and then the other big quarterback news with Russell Wilson, the second most. Obviously, all these quarterback moves are always going to be what gives you the best chance of winning Super Bowl, unless it's for Carson Wentz. But yeah, the Russell Wilson move is game changing for the Broncos, and he didn't play as well as he used to last season. He didn't play as well as he normally does, but I feel like that's gonna be a lot different. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett are great, but Broncos have a better O line. Judy, Sutton, Patrick. Who's the other guy? I don't remember his name. And well, they got Alberto, and then who's the small guy? You guys talk.
Oh, the guy they got last year from Penn State, right?
Yeah, in the second round.
Yeah, why am I'm blanking on his name too? See what happens when
Is it Hamler?
Hamler.
KJ? Yeah, that's right, KJ Hamler.
Right. So they got so many weapons. If Russ is going to get back, this is like the ideal situation.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt. If he's going to go somewhere, going to a team that has decent defensive prospects and good receivers, and it's not a bad place to land, man. I don't know how the Seahawks turn out better on this. They got a lot of stuff in return, but their drafting has not been the best of late. So, I guess they're just gonna go with Drew Lock, and we'll see what happens. Maybe they're trying to figure out they see somebody high in 2023 they really want.
Only getting back what they get back, like 2 first-round picks and Noah Fant, and I mean that's not enough for Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
I would have thought at least like Surtain or Judy.
They got a defensive tackle too, didn't they?
Right. I can't remember who his name is. He was a solid player, but I was definitely thinking they would have got another one of those first-round prospects. Especially, I would think they would just not taken Fant. I would have pushed for Judy or Surtain or even Chubb over Fant, just because Fant's fine. He's been solid in the NFL, but it's not like he's been a game changer. Sure. All right. Now we can talk about the meat of free agency so far. Let me just pull up. I pulled up the Spot Racks free agency signing so far. So we'll pull that up. That's always it's been an interesting year so far. I feel like there haven't been any. There's been one what I would consider a major overpay. Obviously, a lot of these major overpays, it depends on contracts. One major overpay, I think that you guys will know immediately which one I'm talking about. So what are your guys' thoughts so far?
I mentioned Christian Kirk earlier, and
right.
It's one of those things where you're paying for what you expect his production to be, right? Mm-hmm. Christian Kirk was the third receiver in his offense. I know it's another Arizona guy, but it reminds me a lot of Steve Breston when Steve Breston was the third receiver in his offense and left in free agency. And that sounds like a negative comparison because Breston didn't really do anything after he left. I think Christian Kirk is a very talented receiver. I don't know if he is a wide receiver one. I'm always hopeful these guys blow our expectations out of the water and just tear it up. But if that's the case, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by it.
Yeah, I think that he's going to produce because he's got a young quarterback and he's going to have to throw the ball because that defense isn't amazing. And so he's probably just going to be the default target, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to produce up to, was he he's a top 5 paid wide receiver in the NFL. I definitely don't think he's their skill level, but you're always going to overpay to get, if he's, a top 20 receiver in the NFL, then when he's a free agent, especially in a terrible wide receiver class, you're really going to have to pay up for it.
What's Robinson going to make now because of that deal? I just feel like he's upwards of, we might be looking for 20.
I feel like Robinson's not going to get as much as Kirk. A lot older, less athletic. How old is Allen Robinson?
29. He's 29. I looked that up before. Born in 93, I think it was.
Okay.
He's a local guy here too.
Yep. And I think he's probably the most likely to go to Detroit. I think Robinson's probably only going to get a couple-year deal, though. He's probably going to get a 3-year deal that's actually a 2-year deal.
I heard some buzz for the Chiefs for him, but I don't know. I feel like that'd be a weird fit. But it's definitely possible. I
like
feel
that.
Christian Kirk.
I saw that Chiefs were going after Landry there. I like that.
Landry?
No.
Jarvis, yeah, that's fair. They're both kind of possession guys. I definitely thought with Kelsey kind of being the possession king, they'd go for someone more who can stretch the field a little bit more. Here's one that really
they got their field stretcher there in Tyreek, but
you can't have one field stretcher though.
That's true.
Not in modern NFL. You can't only have one field stretcher. It just doesn't work. So I figured they'd try and get another one. Foyesade Oliokun. I don't know if I'm saying that at all correctly. I apologize if I'm not. I don't have a professional person who's telling me pronunciations in my ear. But I feel like that's a bit of an overpay. That's a really big linebacker contract for someone who's been solid but not incredible.
See, I don't. I think that's about what he should have commanded on the market. He's been an ascending player. He's gotten better each year. He's played really well. He's just not in the best defense. That's
fair. That's fair.
Around him.
Linebackers are a position that really feels like it's dependent on what they're working with.
Now, I said all that, and he's going to Jacksonville, who have a lot of problems. So hopefully he's going to help them turn it around.
Jacksonville's going to have some good defensive ends, though, because they already have Josh Allen, and they're going to add Aiden Hutchinson. That's a nice 1-2 at least. They drafted Tyson Campbell last year, I think, at corner. I don't know who else they have. They drafted C.J. Henderson. Was he even still there anymore, or did he get traded?
No, he got traded for Dan Arnold.
For Dan Arnold. I don't understand, man. My own team's moves. We got Capo, we got Cross, 2 solid offensive linemen. Let's not talk. Those are small money deals. Let's talk big money deals. Another one that actually left my team, Ogunjobi, I feel like is also a bit of an overpay. A position. He's a good player. We're not going to say, and also I just want to clarify, and I feel like you guys will both obviously agree with this, is that anytime a player gets the bag, I can say they're overpaid, but I'm glad get the biggest amount of money you can get the money. But I still would say you're a little.
We still make fun of the Chase Daniel deal the Lions gave to Chase Daniel, but you know what? That was awesome for Chase Daniel. That was literally, you couldn't get any better.
The best job in the NFL is backup quarterback that never gets hurt. That's the best job.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. You want to be Eli Manning's backup, Tom Brady's backup. Yep. You just get paid to just sit on the bench, practice a little bit. You're getting $10 million. I'll do that.
The Bears had Todd Collins, and he had played for like 15 years or something like that, some absurd number of years. And he came onto the field because somebody got hurt, threw 5 interceptions, and retired.
I know. How long was it between when like Josh Johnson recorded a stat? Wasn't it like 6 years or something?
Yeah, something like that. These guys, guys love their backup. See, a backup quarterback has game day value. It's just we don't see it as fans, and it's not a significant amount of value. A backup quarterback's job on game day, because they're active on game day, their job is to watch the defense and try to find any holes that they think they can exploit. They're right there in the headset with the offensive coordinator, with the quarterback's coach. They have that game day job. That's why when the quarterback comes off the field, the first place he goes usually is to the backup quarterback and the quarterback coach or the offensive coordinator.
Right. I mean, the backup quarterbacks forget more about football
Yeah.
than any of us will ever
But
know.
that all said, that's not a difficult job. It's a good job to have.
It's a great job to have, and it's like you're not destroying your knees, but you're still getting the NFL paycheck. I was thinking about like how bad it'd be to be a punter. Then you read about punters, it's like their knees are destroyed like 5 years in. It's like the only way to get NFL money and not have your like body destroyed is like backup quarterback. That's the only way. I feel like J.C. Jackson has been the highest money sign so far, so I think we need to talk about him. But I feel like it's not in a negative way. That is
That's
an
a good
ascending
get.
player. That's a great value. Only 6.5. And the cap just keeps going up. It's going to be a really good value if he plays like he did in the next 2 years.
Yeah, there hasn't been a great history of cornerbacks coming out of New England that have done well.
That's fair.
But J.C. Jackson's a really good player. He was an undrafted free agent. Now he's taken home a lot of money, and it's well-deserved money. And I'm hopeful that he does as well as his paycheck is while he's there. He projects really well in that defense. It's a good defense to go to if you're a cornerback. There's a lot of stuff working in his favor there, and hopefully that works out for Chargers fans.
Chargers are sure spending a lot of money this offseason. I think that
they're loading up.
People are hyping them up big time. I mean, I'm loving how it's looking so far.
That's every offseason with the Chargers.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they already had a good roster. They had a J.C. Jackson, Sebastian Joseph Day, and Khalil Mack. I mean, that's a great defense. I feel like they still need to add some dudes on offense. Their offensive line's still a little bit iffy, and their wide receiver room is kind of one note. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, neither. I know they have some other bit pieces, but I feel like they really need like a big time field stretcher. Just because those guys, they have some small time field stretchers, but they really just need another guy who can really get out there and consistently get open 1-on-1.
Get some wheels. A lot of wheels in this class.
There's a lot of wheels in this class. And I feel like a lot of people were giving them like Jordan Davis or something like that. And I feel like with Sebastian Joseph Day signing them, that might make them a little more likely to, look somewhere else for their first round pick, maybe off the tackle, maybe wide receiver. I feel like there's a lot of ways they could go with that. But I feel like after signing 2 big money defensive free agents and trading for Khalil Mack, they have to go offense now in the first round. It just seems to be crazy one-sided use of resources.
Can we talk about the most important signing of the offseason, though? And
Let's hear it.
Mitchell Trubisky getting signed by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Here he is down here. Oof. Did you see have you seen their offense? Someone tweeted out their offensive line.
Yes.
It is brutal. I feel bad for him. Let's see. Let's find it.
So they're taking tackle at 20 for sure, right?
Dan Moore at left tackle, Kevin Dotson, Kendrick Green, Mason Cole, and they just signed Chukwuma Okorafor for what, like 3 years, $30 million or something like that.
Yeah.
And like you said, you pay people for what they're gonna be, not what they are. But I feel like there's no signs that he's gonna be that.
Yeah.
It's just a rough line. I feel bad for Mitch. As a Bengals fan, I'm glad that they went Mitch Trubisky because I don't think he's gonna raise that offense up very high. I'm not scared of Mitch, but you can't help but feel bad for him. He went from the Bears giving him a pretty rough situation to now the Steelers just not gonna protect him at all.
To his credit, Mitchell Trubisky is a really good athlete. I think people forget how good of an athlete Mitchell Trubisky is, and he's going to need that as he's running for his life.
I think people kept bringing. I was talking on I tweeted out like I feel bad for Mitch, and someone was like, "Oh yeah, but he can run so much better than Ben," and I'm like, that kind of like hurts the offensive line, that kind of like if they leave the pocket, that makes it harder to pass protect for them.
I mean, if you design some rollouts and stuff.
That's true. You can get some rollouts that can help a little bit, but he holds the ball a lot longer than Ben was there at the end. Here, let's bring it back around. Let's pull back up the RAS card for Mitch. Just tie it all back in together.
There's the biscuit.
He's a good athlete. He's a good athlete. It's just that is definitely a scary sign. It's not a scary signing. It's the opposite of a scary signing. The Steelers just needed something, I guess, because they didn't want to admit that they're not competing this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that are kind of buckling down for some tough times in the coming years.
The mentioned Seahawks.
We always try to talk about parity in the NFL and how teams can go from worst to first and all that, but the last couple of years, and it's not that teams are tanking, it's that teams are understanding that tearing it down to the studs is necessary sometimes, and seeing that it can work and that it can be a relatively swift turnaround in 3-4 years. Teams are getting wise to that and understanding that the long-term gains outweigh the short-term negatives. I'm talking myself into the fifth Lions rebuild of this decade. That's what I'm doing.
Where do you think that they're going to go with the quarterback position? Let's talk about that. Let's bring it back to the draft a little bit. Where do you think the Lions go quarterback? If you had to guess where they go, and if you had what you wish they would do, where do you think you'd go with both of those?
Oh God. See, this is where it gets tough. Because the whole Lions are going to take Malik Willis thing at 2. That seems like that's relatively new, but the thing is,
it feels very fresh.
They really like Malik Willis. There's no they're just people are just connecting dots. No, they really like Malik Willis. If this is smoke that the Lions are throwing up at 2, that they like Malik Willis, they're doing a really good job of throwing smoke. This isn't like a couple of years ago where the top 5 was pretty much telegraphed a month and a half in advance. What was it, 2019? Jeff Okudah's draft. I think it was 2019. That draft was telegraphed for the first 5 picks, and the first 10 picks were not very surprising. Teams couldn't trade.
I feel like this draft was the way. This last draft was that way too. There was a lot of intrigue there at the top.
This draft, if the Lions are blowing smoke that they like Malik Willis at 2, they're doing a really good job of selling it, not just to local media, but to national media, and hopefully that means it's translating to other teams. Now, as far as what I would do, I like Malik Willis a lot, but I wouldn't go quarterback at 2. And as much as I want them to take a quarterback because Goff, I'm adamantly against taking a quarterback with a late first-round pick. I'm against it with a second-round pick. A third-round pick is just lighting the pick on fire. So it gets really tough when you need to replace your quarterback and there aren't a lot of good options.
Right. I mean, are you ready for another year of suck, I guess?
Yeah. We're going to get it no matter what, but do you get a year of suck with some promise after that? Or do you get a year of suck and then you're thinking to yourself, well, if they don't get rid of him now, then we're looking at another one. You want to see that silver lining. And we just don't have it yet.
It really stinks for the Lions because it's I think the last 5 years, every year people were saying, oh, this next quarterback class is going to be even better. But after last year's class was the only one where they weren't they were like, no, next year's class is not going to be better. And then the Lions needed a quarterback. So, yeah. But next year's class is going to be better.
It can't be worse.
Yeah,
can't be worse. And yeah, this will be the worst class since the EJ Manuel year, I guess. I mean, I guess the Wentz and Goff year, if Dak didn't come out of the 4th round, that would be pretty brutal. Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, it's pretty rough.
Yeah. Teams are.
I mean, we did kind of get a streak of bad quarterback drafts.
Yeah, it's been weird because teams are simultaneously, we're getting teams that are completely unwilling to let a quarterback sit. And we get teams that are adamant that their quarterback sits, and we're not getting consistent results for either of those things. We just haven't been.
Listen, when Jordan Love starts in 2030, he's going to be very, very well seasoned for the Packers.
For whoever.
I mean, yeah. Has anyone ever? I can't believe. I don't feel like there's no way this has happened before that a first round pick has been drafted by a team. And I think he started a game, but he's been drafted and then they just had him never replace the person he was drafted to replace. the entire time. Oh, it's brutal.
Almost happened to Rodgers. I mean, Rodgers was
That's
sitting
true.
forever.
Rodgers was like, "That's not happening to me.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna win back-to-back MVPs, and then they're gonna make him sit."
Yep.
Yeah, quarterback situation is just weird because I feel like we do. There's a lot of decent prospects, decent quarterbacks in the league right now, but I feel like we also are kind of in the middle of the changing of the guard, but still have like a lot of work that needs done in terms of bringing in more good quarterbacks and developing them well. Because like 2013 to like 2016, it was just not. Maybe even 2017. I can't remember who all was in every class. 2017 was was that Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson?
That was
Was that 2018?
2018, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
I'm getting
It was
old. I
2017.
can't remember anything anymore.
I can't remember. Well, it was like 5 years ago. I feel like it's fair to not remember that.
I feel like I should build a database that has all this information in it.
Yeah.
Wait, I can look it up. I can look it up. Right, we got 20. He was in 2017 to 2017. Have this handy dandy database. Oh, I broke it. It doesn't like me. I'm typing something in wrong. Who was in the 2017 draft?
I'm just
Why can I
filtering right
not
now.
type?
Let's see. We got Deshaun Watson, Biscuit, Patrick Mahomes was
Okay.
2017.
Kaiser.
Patrick Mahomes was
Kaiser,
2017. So in 2018? That was
Josh
Sam Darnold,
Allen.
Baker Mayfield,
Yeah, and Josh Rosen.
Josh Allen. And then 2019 was
Daniel Jones, Haskins, Kyler Murray.
Yep. And then 2020 was Burrow and Herbert. Okay, I got it. And then so 13 into 2016 sucked in terms of quarterback classes. Pretty much overall. 2013 was maybe one of the worst ever. And then you had
Manziel,
2014 was
Bortles, and Bridgewater in 2014.
Derek Carr was probably the best quarterback from the class, and
Yeah.
he was the second round pick.
Mariota, Winston, and Wentz, or Mariota and Winston from 2015, and then Wentz, Lynch, and Goff from 2016. Ouch.
And Dak was the only thing that saved that class.
Yeah.
And he was a fourth round pick.
It was the one with like Ponder and Blaine Gabbert were like the top guys.
Oh God, that one.
Oh, was that 2012? I think that was 2012. Yeah, that was rough.
This is great.
So,
going down. Oh yeah, Tim Tebow was a first round pick.
Oh my gosh.
RG3,
So, yeah,
Andrew Luck, Brandon Whedon. Oh God, Brandon Whedon, Ryan Tannehill. That was 2012.
Andrew Luck.
Was he?
Andrew Luck and Ryan Tannehill weren't bad.
Yeah.
Brandon Whedon was like 30 years old when they drafted him.
I think it's 25 or 26. 26,
That's
I think
the
it
same
was.
thing about taking a quarterback.
For a quarterback, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, for a quarterback, the only position that really makes sense, I guess, because it's like Brandon Whedon was drafted in 2012, and he was born in 1983. So he was 28 when he was drafted.
Oh, good Lord, even older.
Yeah, that's.
No, right now was he 29? No, he's 28. He was 28. He turned 29 during the season. I guess if you're going to draft an old prospect, that's be a quarterback because no other prospect is going to last longer than another.
I don't know if you guys saw that picture of Ken Stabler when he was 37, but that made me feel really good about how
I did see that. I saw your reply to that too.
Ken Stabler played.
I hope I don't look that old at 37.
He played until he was 39. The picture was when he was 37, and he was 37 going on 60.
He did not look good.
Yeah, he hit the ball.
I'm making fun of a great football player, but I feel good about how I look.
He'll fan himself with his money. He'll be all right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, just look at these contracts now. I feel like it's weird that we haven't got a $100 million contract. I feel like we normally get one.
I haven't really had any quarterbacks. I think the only quarterback signing has been Tim Boyle.
Bridgewater too.
Oh yeah, Bridgewater got signed.
Bridgewater did
Miami, right?
Yep.
I'm trying to load last year to see if there was a $100 million man.
Well, Mahomes was last year, wasn't it? So we got a $200 million.
Well, yeah, but this is only tracking external signings.
Oh, that's true.
So there won't be very many
No.
quarterbacks. Trent Williams got $138 million last offseason. I feel like we normally get one player who just gets a massive, long contract every year.
Maybe that's going to be.
I don't know
year.
why. I feel like we've already seen the biggest contracts this year. No, I guess normally we didn't get one in 2020. Byron Jones was the highest. He got the same contract as as J.C. Jackson. Is Byron Jones still in Miami? Is he still good? I can't remember.
Yeah, he's still in Miami, and he's still all right. He's doing pretty well there. They got Xavier Howard down there doing.
Oh, hey, you
doing
guys remember this guy, right?
Yeah, that dude. Wonder what he's doing.
Oh man.
Didn't he? So he's gonna go back to New England and get like 18 sacks, right?
Yeah, probably.
So you got $90 million. That's so much. I can't believe he gave Trey Flowers $90 million. I guess I can't go back any further. Not allowed to. Anyways, I feel like we're over an hour here. I think we can wrap it up. We kind of went off track a little bit there, but I feel like we were having fun. I feel like that's
if you have me on, you are never going to be on track the whole way. It's just not going to happen.
No, I mean I get off track a lot too. It's fun. It's more fun to go off track sometimes. Let's just I'm just gonna open up RAS, and we're just gonna pull up a random player's RAS to just end us off here. I can learn to type. My gosh. Let's see. Random player. Here's one. Here we go. This player I was not expecting this testing. So let's see. Whose testing was I not expecting? Play the game. Oh, we lost Grant again. We always do. Grant, hey, what's up? We lost you again.
I gotta do something about it. It's ridiculous.
All right, Grant, who do you think whose RAS am I going to pull up? It's a random person.
Who do I think it's going to be? Is that what you said?
Yeah, they did really well. Who do you think it's going to be? Oh, I showed it.
Oh, Cole Strange.
Whose is it? He's a guard.
I saw it.
Right,
he's
Cole
a good
Strange.
prospect. Cole Strange is actually a really interesting prospect because, like, coming into the combine as a center, because he's actually a center, not a guard. He came into the combine with a very big reputation as being extremely smart, very cerebral, one of the most intelligent players in the draft. All about how good he is above the neckline, and then he tests like that. You've already got the most important part for a center. Everything going up, cerebrally and mentally, and then he tests out like insane athletically. That's a good time right there. He made himself a lot of money at the combine.
Yeah, he definitely was one of the bigger risers. I feel like I heard some first round buzz like right after his testing, and it's definitely interesting considering the other guy, the other center, who always has been getting a lot of first round buzz, came in really small. Tyler Linderbaum didn't test. Definitely be interesting if he does and what he does. I mean, really small arms, which is definitely concerning. And I honestly wonder if Cole Strange might end up going over Linderbaum.
Linderbaum has some great tape, though. I mean, he's got some fantastic tape.
You can't tell me that players with great tape haven't been drafted behind guys with better athleticism.
Oh, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a good equalizer.
It is. Well, I mean, I'm very curious. I want Tyler Linderbaum. Let him just drop to 31. We're good with that. But anyways, I feel like let's wrap it up before we go off on another tangent. I'll just thank you very much, Kent, for joining us. Oh, here, let me turn off the screen share so we can just get our faces up here. Thank you very much, Kent, for joining us. I had a lot of fun chatting with you. I always have a lot of fun chatting with you because your product is fantastic. It's something that I think all of us use every year. And we lost Grant again. Hey, Grant, welcome back again. I was just telling Grant, Kent how much we value his product. So you can go. You can find him Math Bomb on Twitter. Is it ras.football?
RAS.football. Nice and easy to remember.
There you go. So definitely go check those out. We are Walk the Mock. Go to walkthemock.com, do some mock drafts. So thank you very much, Kent, for joining us. Grant, do you have any parting words here for our lovely guest?
I mean, maybe we can have you out for another Mock Talk Monday. That would be really nice.
Absolutely.
Maybe,
you have him do
at some point.
We do live mocks sometimes, so you could definitely come and do a mock with us. We can give you the lines, take it away from Grant.
Yeah.
Don't put too much pressure on me. I'm gonna end up taking somebody bad. I'm gonna have people jumping at me for it. We all know that mock drafts are absolutely predictive, and they are totally what we would do. We never do anything hypothetical with it. We never use them as thought exercises. It's all meant to
never do anything fun.
No, it's all.
Oh my gosh! Now I have to go on another tangent. I feel like We're just gonna do one last tangent because I'm not gonna remember this by next Monday. Some people get so mad when you take a different position than what you normally would in the first round, but then that makes the next couple rounds so much more interesting. Like if you always take a wide receiver in the first round, then in the second round you're always pigeonholed into these other positions and these specific players. Or if you go and you take like a center or something, if you need a center, and then you look and like, wow, the wide receivers are really good in the second round here. Wish I would have just not taken them in the first round sometime. Variety. Anyways, thank you for joining us, Ken. I'm sorry for a last tangent. Had a lot of fun. So I'm just gonna play our outro here and end it. We'll be back next Monday, I believe, around the same time, 9 o'clock. Not sure what we talk about, but it'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks for